I want to give a shout out to Outmatch Boxing. That's a YouTube boxing channel I'm recommending for you guys. Head on over there and subscribe. He's an upstanding young man who's putting out good boxing videos, so make sure you go and check him out. I've seen quite a few people online who seem to think that the stoppage was premature in this fight. Now, it is one of my bugbears about British boxing. It has gained a reputation, and I think rightfully so, for premature stoppages. In this particular instance, could they have given Nick Webb the full count rather than just waving it off while he was on the ground? Yes. But given Nick Webb's history, being stopped by Kamil Sokolovsky, being chinned by Dave Allen, the odds of him coming back from that situation and being able to weather the storm and go on to, I don't know, go the distance or even win the fight, I think were remote. This is not like the Sammy Vargas stoppage against Conor Benn. Sammy Vargas hadn't even been down. Sammy Vargas had a history of durability that Nick Webb doesn't have. So that to me was a premature stoppage, which was indefensible in my view. But this stoppage here, I don't have much of an issue with, to be honest. Maybe the referee could have counted all the way to 10, allowed Nick Webb to get on his feet and whatnot. But again, the odds of him surviving that situation there, I think are remote, given the guy's history and whatnot. Now, it was only a one-round fight, so there's not too much to talk about. Nick Webb came out very aggressively, as he did against Eric Pfeiffer. I guess he was looking to try and carry that same momentum from the fight against Pfeiffer. Him and Fabio Wardley both fought on the Dillian Whyte-Povetkin rematch undercard. Wardley had a shaky performance against Eric Molina. Molina being very experienced, and as I mentioned before the Wardley fight, he is somewhat slick, Molina, in terms of, you know, defensively he can be slightly slick. He's not like Floyd Mayweather or anything, but he does have some degree of defensive slickness. He has that old man slickness about him, that veteran slickness, where he knows what to do in certain situations. And also, he's quite a good counterpuncher. He's quite sneaky, Eric Molina. He did hurt Chris Arreola when they fought. He got stopped in one round by Arreola, Eric Molina, but he did hurt Chris Arreola in that fight. And he also managed to wobble Deontay Wilder when they fought. See, the main issue with Eric Molina has always been his intestinal fortitude or lack thereof. He's always had ability. He's always had decent power and a decent skill set. Not elite, but decent. It's just the lack of desire. He doesn't have that fire in his belly. So generally speaking, when things get tough, Eric Molina usually packs up his tent and goes home. Yeah, and I want to say that's what we saw in the Wardley fight as well, because although he hurt Wardley, right? He was on Wardley, he was trying to follow up after hurting him. Then he walked into one which put him down. To me, Molina didn't look like he was out of it. I've seen Molina in that position many times before, and he always has the look of somebody who could get up but doesn't really fancy it. And that's what we saw in the Wardley fight. So Wardley in against an experienced guy, but shaky, got hurt. For me, Molina was actually ahead on points, at least on my scorecard, going into that fifth round. I think it was the fifth round when Wardley stopped him. Whereas with Nick Webb on that same undercard, he was fighting Eric Pfeiffer, who isn't as experienced as Eric Molina, but he is a lot fresher and he had a good amateur background. I really thought that Eric Pfeiffer was going to beat Nick Webb. Nick Webb's been chinned by Dave Allen. He's been knocked out by Kamil Sokolovsky. So that surprised me when Nick Webb was able to go through that guy like that. I think it surprised Pfeiffer too. I think he probably thought that Nick Webb was a soft touch. Yeah. Anyway, Webb did a lot better than I thought he would. Fabio Wardley had some issues against Eric Molina. So when the two guys were matched against each other, I thought, wow, this is a good fight. I was slightly favoring Webb because I thought if he can go out there and hit Wardley on the chin with the kind of momentum he hit Eric Pfeiffer with, then maybe he can get the same reaction out of Wardley's legs as Eric Molina was able to. Remember, Nick Webb, far more amateur experience than Fabio Wardley, who came from the white collar circuit, I believe. So this was a really intriguing fight going into it. Ultimately, Fabio Wardley was prepared for what Nick Webb was going to do. He showed much better defense here than he showed in the Eric Molina fight, because against Molina, he was getting tagged quite regularly. but he was going forward against Molina. And perhaps that's not Fabio Wardley's comfort zone defensively. Some guys are able to read a fight a lot better when their opponent's coming at them. And they can, allow the opponent to lead off and to react to what the opponent is doing. When the tables are turned and they have to go looking for an opponent, they don't find that as intuitive. They don't have the aptitude for doing that as much as they do when an opponent's coming at them. So Wardley looked a lot more comfortable here, even though he was under fire. Nick Webb came out like a bull, right? Slinging big punches. And it did appear that maybe Wardley was slightly buzzed by one of the shots that Nick Webb threw. But the thing that really stood out to me is that Nick Webb's shots, for the most part, were being blocked or they were missing. And the early confidence, which didn't last long from Nick Webb, but he looked fairly confident when he came out and he started swinging these big shots like he did against Pfeiffer. That turned into anxiousness quite quickly because of the fact that he was missing. When you're a big guy, you're swinging all these big shots and your opponent's slipping and rolling and he's looking at you with mean intent in his eyes, you might start getting a little nervous, particularly if you're a guy who doesn't have the best punch resistance like a Nick Webb. So that's what I noticed, even though the fight was very short. That's what I noticed after Fabio Wardley was rolling and blocking and slipping. He didn't get the reaction he was hoping for, because when he hit Pfeiffer, he got a reaction out of Pfeiffer in the first round. He took a lot of Pfeiffer's confidence away in that very first round with those aggressive attacks. But here against Wardley, he was missing. He found Wardley quite difficult to hit, managed to catch him with a few grazing blows, maybe buzz Wardley slightly, but Wardley was very composed. And when it was Wardley's turn to go on the offensive, Nick Webb did not have the same defensive ability that Fabio Wardley demonstrated. And Wardley was able to set about Nick Webb, trap him on the ropes, unleash big shots, which were getting through clean. You saw Alan Babich after the fight making fun of Nick Webb's guard, which was very, very ineffective. The way he was holding his hands and not really doing much to block the punches. Very ineffective. So, yeah. Nick Webb's defense really was horrendous compared to Fabio Wardley's defense. Offensively, Nick Webb's always been sloppy. Although a heavy-handed guy, comes out aggressively, you don't want to stick your chin out. Ask Eric Pfeiffer about that. But defensively, shockingly poor. And Fabio Wardley was able to capitalize on that in the very first round. And it was just a case of turning the tables. Once he was able to push Nick Webb back, the fight was over. Because Nick Webb just couldn't defend himself against what Fabio Wardley was throwing at him. So it was simply a case of weathering the early storm, and it was very, very early, right? Early in the first round, weathering the early storm, allowing Nick Webb to charge him a few times, slipping the shots, rolling with the shots, making him uncomfortable because of the fact that he wasn't able to land clean, turning the tables, and then taking him out. So good performance by Fabio Wardley. They can step him up again now. I would like to see him fight another wily veteran like an Eric Molina. Somebody who can ask him questions, take him out of his comfort zone, because, again, it appears as though he prefers fighting on the back foot as opposed to coming forward. Yeah? He has some quite slick moves in there. Dylan White, after the fight, said that in sparring, when Wardley wants to be elusive, he's actually very difficult to hit when he puts himself in that mind frame. So he needs to be able to develop his defensive skills on the front foot as well, where he can switch from offense to defense very quickly moving forward. Because, success in boxing a lot of the time is about being versatile, about being able to tailor your style or tailor your tactics to your opponent. And he was able to deal with Nick Webb in very quick fashion, as we all saw. But I still think what Eric Molina did in there is going to have to be revisited for Fabio Wardley. He's going to have to try and address some of the issues he had with Molina. Perhaps do a rematch with Molina or somebody similar to that. Just a wily old vet who knows the ropes, who's fought at a decent level, and see if Fabio Wardley can put on a more assured performance, a more dominant performance than he did against Eric Molina, because as I say, on my scorecard, Molina was actually winning that fight. Or at the very least, it was highly, it's a long time since I saw the fight. I only watched it once. But from what I can remember, Eric Molina was winning plenty of rounds in there. Even if you didn't have him ahead. Maybe I didn't have him ahead at the time. I can't remember. I'm just assuming I did because I remember him having a lot of success. But yeah, that kind of opponent again, I'd like to see Fabio Wardley in with, because again, this is a guy who came from the white collar circuit, I believe. So hardly any amateur bouts. You don't want to rush him too fast, right? What is the rush? How old is Fabio Wardley now? In fact, let me just check. I'm not sure how old he is. He must be in his 20s, right? 26. So there's absolutely no rush with Fabio Wardley, a guy as young as this, as inexperienced as this, has some talent there clearly. But yeah, just bring him around the right way and maybe he can have a successful career and go places. And of course, Fabio Wardley's weight in this fight at 235 pounds, that's a decent size heavyweight. I mean, it's kind of a medium size heavyweight by today's standards, because earlier on in his career, he was in the 220s. Now he's in mid 230s. And as he gets older, he'll probably put on a bit more weight as well. So, you know, people talking about him fighting maybe at bridgerweight, or earlier on in his career, people even talking about cruiserweight. I think that's probably unrealistic at this point. If he's weighing 235, cruiserweight is 200 pounds. Nah, bridgerweight, what's the weight limit? Is it 220? Bridgerweight maybe at a push, but again, with a growing young man like Fabio Wardley, I don't really think it's the right thing to do. I think heavyweight probably is the division he should be campaigning in. And as I say, 6'5", 235 pounds. And he's mobile. You know, he's got speed. He's aggressive. He's got the killer instinct we saw here against Nick Webb. When he had his man hurt, he went for it. There was no hesitation. It was all guns blazing. And he managed to get the stoppage. So, yeah, onwards and upwards for Fabio Wardley. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about his performance. And give me your suggestions in terms of who you think he should fight next.